Gisela Zuniga, and today I'll be discussing Amendments 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, and 26. Amendment number 16. The protection offered by the amendment, it allowed the Congress to levy an income tax without it amount the state or based on the United States Senate. The amendment accepted income tax from the constitutional recommended regard direct taxes. The historical background of the amendment was it was needed to pass taxes which it would help in the Civil War. People decided to form an amendment instead to take to a case to a Supreme Court. The different people or group of people working towards the amendment, the people who worked towards this amendment was Congress and the people. The obstacles faced in passing this amendment. One obstacle they faced was that it went against the previous decisions in 1995. The third obstacle would be they didn't know if it would be an income tax or an imposed tariff on import to collect substance. The time it took to ratify the amendment, the time it took was 4 years. The overall impact of this amendment was the Congress has more to tax their citizens instead of the federal. The 17th Amendment, the protection offered by the amendment, this amendment would design the election process rather than appointing first senators. The some historical background would be that this amendment was needed to help the citizens, the one electing the senator. Instead, it was the Senate's legislator. The Senate was known as the billionaire club who served only the powerful interests. The different people or groups of people working towards the amendment, the group were the citizens because the senators were not selected by them, they were not being treated fair. The obstacles faced in this amendment, the obstacles were ideas wasn't supported until the 19th centuries when the problems were more noticeable. Then the state legislature deadlocked over the election of senators, which led to many vaccines of Senate positions. They could last between a few months to years. The time it took to the amendment to be ratified was 1 year. The overall impact of this amendment, the impact would be that instead of the state legislators to be the ones elected the senators, now it was the people. It means that the senators were working for the right for the people. 18th Amendment, the protection offered by the amendment prohibit manufacturing, selling, or distributing alcohol beverages. The historical background emerged from the temperance movement in which they prohibit anything dealing with alcohol because it was destroying the life of the people. They thought that alcohol was the social illness to immorality. The different people or groups of people working towards the amendment required by women or families they wanted some peace in their lives. They were also people with a specific kind of religious and people who didn't drink. The obstacles faced this amendment was it seemed like nothing was wrong even if the people were destroying each other. Not a lot of people who were the law were able to control the alcohol even if they wanted to. It got out of control. The time it took to refine the amendment, it was completed on January 16, 1919 and would take effect on January 17, 1920. The overall impact of this amendment would be that the alcohol beverages were now under control, and so we, the people, families would be separated and the violence decreased. The 19th Amendment, the protection offered by the amendment allow women to vote. Right to vote cannot be denied because of gender. The historical background, the amendment was needed because women didn't have the equal rights than men had. They started to create organizations and they wanted in a national level. Different people or groups of people working towards the amendment. Most of the people who wanted this amendment were women. They were very there were very few men. Some of these women were Deans Rose Elizabeth Candy Stan and Susan D. Anthony. The obstacles faced in passing this amendment. The obstacles that they faced would be that people still had the old customs, laws, and deep culture beliefs that women should be a housewife, etc. Men also thought they were the head of the national need came from which it would be first to get the independence of the country first. It was usually men against his amendment. The time it took in August 18, 1920 it was ratified and it took effect 8 days later. An overall impact of this amendment was now women were able to vote without being judged. This meant for them they were becoming equal as men. 22 Amendment. The protection offered by this amendment puts limits on the number of terms a president may serve, allows only 2 terms. The historical background, the amendment was needed because the state did not want a monarchy or that the president be too old for functioning properly, like being fast with his decisions or be out of date with what people need. The different people or groups for people working towards the amendment, citizens, because they did not want a president to serve too long. The obstacles faced in passing this amendment. The presidents were used to serve more than 2 times, but this new constitution would prohibit that. The time it took to ratify this amendment was required 36 of them. 48 states were complete on February 27, 1953. The overall impact of this amendment, would be that now presidents could only serve 2 terms instead of more like the president used to do. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.